What's going on, guys? This is Schwifty here, and today I am bringing you my Week 3 PPL Team Builder, PPL off-season Team Builder, I should say. I've got a couple of things to get into before I actually start the team analysis, but something on a bit of a lighter note first. I decided to change my showdown background, and I just wanted to show that off to you guys. That's what you're going to see there to begin with. So now I'm going to get into the team I am facing and all that jazz. So you might remember from last week I was supposed to face Kelly, aka Under the Radar. Unfortunately, he has had to drop out of the off-season league due to time constraints, and so we got Juancito Marvel to take his place. Now, I actually haven't played Juan. We were in D2 together, but the week we were supposed to play, we were both really pressed for time, and so I ended up playing a backup coach who froze my Mega Sableye and proceeded to set up bulk ups behind herself with Mega Medicham. So that was a fun time. So I'm looking to, even though it wasn't actually his team, I'm looking to get revenge for that. So I'm going to jump into the team builder real quick and show you guys what I've got. So first of all, looking through the team that Juan has inherited, now we did say he could make changes, but because this all happened fairly late in the week, which is also why this video is going to be up late, he decided not to make any changes for this week to make it easier on me, given I had already built a team, so thank you a lot to Juan for that. So from next week he will be able to make changes to his team. We haven't exactly decided, but I think it'll just be unlimited transfers of any free agents that he wants, so he can basically build a team from leftovers if he feels like it. However, I personally think he doesn't need to, because his team is freaking amazing. So currently, his team consists of Magearna, Necrozma, Tapu Fini, Silvally, which gets all types. It has to obviously hold the disc for those types though. Zapdos, Infernape, Serperior, Zygarde 10%, so the dog form, Mega Sableye, and Ribombee. So this is probably, in my opinion, one of the best drafts in this league. It did snipe me, actually. I wanted Magearna first overall, but unfortunately got taken. This was the draft that was just before mine, so unfortunately that got taken from me. And then I was also looking at Silvally, but that thing got taken earlier than I wanted it, and stuff like that. So a very, very solid draft he's put together. It's got speed, it's got power, and above all, it's got unbelievable bulk. So you'll be seeing that I'm bringing quite a few wall breakers, because with the likes of Magearna, Necrozma, Tapu Fini as your first 3 picks, that is incredibly hard to break through. Plus he then has a Silvally, which, given it can be any type, it's very hard to run coverage for. Zapdos, which is reliably bulky, and then just to top it all off, he's added a Mega Sableye in the back to deter hazards and just shoot hits. The first one I am bringing is actually a bit of a bait to try and help other things on my team clean up. This Hooper, you will see, is carrying the Fire Z. It's the first time I'm going to use a Z move ever, outside of the in-league play, I mean. And running Hyper Space Fury, Fire Punch, Gunshot, and Psychic, max attack, almost max speed, basically enough speed to creep Necrozma. So if he is running speed in Necrozma with X-Scissor, I know I want to outspeed that thing. It's probably going to be Colbur, if I'm honest, with X-Scissor, because that's just a good check to Hooper Unbound. But Hyper Space Fury still does a solid 40% to that thing if it's defensive with the Color Barrier, and I will die afterwards, but that will put it in range of some other things on my team which are much more important. So Hooper in this game is not going to be a sweeper or anything like that, it is just here to get off big damage on things. So the Fire Z is for Magearna, because Magearna is a very, very good switch into this thing. If it runs max HP, I can't 2-hit KO it with Fire Punch unless I run like Life Orb or Expert Belt, in which case I immediately reveal that I'm not Scarfed. So the plan is to bluff that I'm Scarfed, keep spamming Hyper Space Fury on things, force Mega Sableye to switch in and take a Hyper Space Fury for example, and try and get Magearna to switch into this, so then I can go for a Fire Z Fire Punch, which will do like 88% if he's max HP, like an Assault Vest or Spec Set for example, which is the most likely against my team, I feel. If he does bring physically defensive, I'll need to get a little bit more chip damage, but I'm pretty sure after a Hyper Space Fury, a Fire Z is a very good chance to knock it out, especially if I can get Rocks chip damage or something like that on it. So the other moves are fairly self-explanatory. I have Gunshot for the Tapu Fini, it also hits the Ribombee, not that I really need to hit that thing that much harder. I'll probably go for Fire Punch because I'm fairly sure it kills. Hyper Space Fury hits most of his team as hard as I can, depending on what Silvally type it is. I might not be able to hit it, like if you run Silvally Dark, I can't do that much damage to it, but it also doesn't get recovery, and it'll still take a decent chunk because it's not that bulky, and Hooper is an absolute monster. I also expect him to bring a different Silvally type, which I'll get into later. I then have Psychic just because my only way to hit Infernate for any reasonable damage was actually Gunk Shot, and I wanted something a little bit more reliable, and I can afford to run Mix with Psychic and run a minor special attack nature. It'll still OHKO an Infernate, which is nice. Obviously I can't really stay in on Infernate because U-turn will just fuck me up, but if he's choiced into Flamethrower or friggin' Grass Knot, I don't know, then this thing can take a hit, particularly if it's on the special side, and just annihilate that thing. And yeah, basically, it's a pretty standard wall breaker. It's not quite fast enough for his team. I should 2-hit KO and make a Sableye, particularly given there's some other things that I bring, which should get chip damage on that. I basically OHKO Zydoge, do a lot to Superior, do a lot to Zapdos, etc. It's just a solid wall breaker to try and get through most of his bulk. Now, next wall breaker I am bringing is a Choice Banded Victini, because he has no switch-ins, which is why I mentioned him bringing a different Silvally type. If you bring Silvally Fire with like Rest, that can actually switch into Victini, but it can't really do much to me back. So I'm running V-Create, Bolt Strike, Quick Attack, and Trick. So V-Create is literally the only move I need for 90% of this team. It's like, it OHKOs Magearna, 2-hit KOs even a fully physically offensive Necrozma, 2-hit KOs any form of Zapdos, 2-hit KOs Infernate, OHKOs Superior no matter what. I think even through an Orca Barrier it probably OHKOs. It will OHKO an offensive Psydog, which is ridiculous. 2-hit KOs make a Sableye, and OHKOs Ribombee. So V-Create is just going to do big damage to things. And then have Bolt Strike to hit the Tapu Fini. That's a guaranteed 2-hit KO on a physically defensive Tapu Fini. So if I predict that, I can get off big chip damage and basically make that thing useless. I then have Banded Quick Attack because I might need priority late game to kill things like, say if Ribombee sets up and I don't manage to kill it with something else on my team, or if Superior sets up and it's in range, or Infernate, things like that. I didn't really feel like there was any other move that would be particularly useful, because even if there is Silvally Fire, I don't, like, I guess U-turn maybe, but I figured that Quick Attack might come into handy late game. Just some banded priority would be really nice. And then I have Trick. Now Trick is mainly in case he brings like Calm Mind, Necrozma, or Tapu Fini. I can trick them my band, cripple them if they go for Calm Mind or for a recovery move, and then I can still fire off very, very powerful hits. Obviously I don't get some of those OHKOs that I was talking about, but I believe I still 2-hit KO physically offensive Tapu Fini, and if I can cripple something by tricking it a Choice Band, that's always going to be handy. Could potentially also work with something like an AV Magearna, get AV and then I can take hits from it, and I can fire off a V-Trait, and you know, I figured it would be nice utility. I'm running max speed just so if he does run anything other than max speed Zapdos, I will outspeed it. That also means that I'll outspeed Silvally. I figured there wasn't much point running that tiny little bit of HP investment because this team's speed tiers are very, very solid, so I had to run enough speed for Silvally anyway, or I felt like I should, and then it wasn't that much more to go up to just speed tying with Zapdos, so I figured I'd do that. Just in case he brings a bulkier one, I can be guaranteed to outspeed it, or if he decides to bring Modest or something like that, I will outspeed it and fuck its face up. So, next one I am bringing is straight up memes, and that is Miltank. You're probably looking at this team and you're like, Trav, you have 3 Mons, which are all physically offensive with 252, 252 spreads, but I'm kind of forced to against this team. You know how last week I said I had a really bad matchup? Well, this week is like 100 times worse. This team just absolutely shits on mine. There's nothing I can do about it. Like, no matter what team I bring, I just don't have switch-ins to a particular mon, and that just sucks. So anyway, getting into this Miltank set, basically my aim is to bait Mega Sableye with this. Like, normally I bring in a Miltank and he's going to think Mega Sableye can just shut this thing down, and Baby Eric suggested running Sub-Focus Punch because memes. With Scrappy, because I'll do a lot to Mega Sableye, and I actually decided to change it up to Power Up Punch plus Facade because Mega Sableye loves to run Willow. It might run Toxic against me or something like that. It's very much expected, that's the sort of thing it could do. And if he does status me and I hit it with 2 Power Up Punches, Facade just straight up knocks it out afterwards. It'll also 2-hit KO Tapu Fini, OHKO Zapdos most likely. OHKO obviously any of these frail things, but they'll outspeed me, so that's kind of whatever. But I can still potentially take a hit from stuff like Zydog. I can't take a hit from Infernate, but it's just the reality of it. I can do a lot of damage to the likes of Necrozma and Magearna. I do actually 2-hit KO max HP Magearna at +2, but they burn Facade, which is really cool. Or if I'm not burned, Earthquake. So that's basically the entire gimmick behind this thing, is Power Up Punch, preferably on a Mega Sableye switch in. and keep clicking power up punch if he recovers or whatever until he burns me or statuses me, or if he starts calm minding up, just keep clicking power up punch and then knock him out with a facade or whatever. I have milk drink to keep myself healthy, so if I do need to take a hit from something, like say he brings, I don't know, milk drink's just there for recovery and getting worn down by status, and I can milk drink up on a weakened Zapdos or something that I can take a hit from. And then Earthquake is just to hit that Magina in case I don't get statused, and that's basically it. It's fairly self-explanatory. Hopefully going to bait that Mega Sableye, because Mega Sableye is actually a pretty big issue for some of the things on my team, so hopefully we can sort that thing out. Now, next up is Thunderous. This is my main win condition. So you'll notice that all the things I've been trying to whittle down are not his fast things on his team. Like, I'm relying on the fact that I will pivot into his bulky threats I need to get rid of, and then this thing can sweep. So if I can weaken or get rid of Magina, Necrozma, probably weaken Silvally depending on what type it is, and then probably a little bit of chip damage on some other things like Zapdos, and in particular Mega Sableye. So the big ones are Magina, Necrozma, Mega Sableye. I need chip damage on before Thunderous can do anything to them. So like Magina, for example, even at +2, I realized that I don't do anything to it with Thunderbolt. Like, it does like 50% and it can just open with a Flare Cannon. And I was looking at trying to do the screens thing again, but it just didn't work out with my team, with the ones that I have. So I opted to go for Double Dance again, mainly because if for some reason he sacks his offensive threats, so like I bring in Victini and he switches in Zydog thinking he can take a hit and then dies to a V-Create, then I need to Nasty Plot up to break through his walls, so that just gives me another wall breaking option. But most likely I'm going to be going for Agility. I literally didn't need any other coverage. Like, there was no coverage move that would help me out because of Necrozma's filter-esque ability. It does, Dark Pulse does very, very marginally more than Thunderbolt, so it wasn't worth wasting a coverage slot for that. I have nothing to hit Magina. Silvally, you have no idea what type it's going to be. Nothing hits Zapdos harder than Thunderbolt, nothing hits Infernape harder than Thunderbolt. Superior HP Ice is the best thing I can run for it. I could run HP Flying, that would be better, or Sludge Bomb, but then I can't hit Zydog, so HP Ice hits both of those, etc. It's just, this is by far my most reliable way to take him out, because if he does bring the Superior, for example, and I've set up an Agility, a Leaf Storm won't take me out, and 2 HP Ices will kill it, so that's kind of a way I can deal with it. Prankster is also nice, just so I can bluff my speed investment a little bit by going for like a Nasty Plot before something. He might not think about it and think that I outspeed, say, Infernape when I actually don't. The speed investment I do have is enough to outspeed a Choice Scarf Ribombi at +2, I think. I think that's what I went for, because there was no reason not to just outspeed the fastest thing on his team at +2 with the Agility, and then obviously just Nasty Plot for power, Modest for power, the rest in HP so I can potentially take a hit. I am holding the Chillon Berry because he does have that Zygarde 10%, which has a reasonable matchup against my team. Like, it's not amazing, I do have a Dolomize, but it gets Crunch, that kind of thing, and if it can just spam 1000 arrows, it will. So this allows me to take like a Banded Extreme Speed plus a Mach Punch from Infernape, if it comes to that, and I can just knock those both out with HP Ice and Thunderbolt respectively. That's my main win con, the thing I sort of built everything else around, so that's why I brought like the Hooper bait to try and get rid of Magina, why I'm bringing just Banded Victini so I can just click V-Create and get big damage up on things, and why I'm bringing a bait Miltank to try and weaken or get rid of some of his walls like Mega Sableye, potentially Necrozma, Tapu Fini, stuff like that. So next up is another potential win condition, and that is actually the Comfy. So I had a lot of issues with what I wanted to run on this mon. So I had in mind like a Specs set, because a Specs Triage Drain Kiss with a chance to knock out Zydog after rocks. It also 2-hit KO'd like Mega Sableye, but the issue was, I mean, Magina just switches in every single time on this thing, which is why I wanted to run Leech Seed, because then I can get some chip damage off on that, and like I've been saying, I just need chip damage on Magina and a couple other bulky things if he decides to try and switch those in as well, like Necrozma, etc. If he brings Calm Mind Sweepers, this can also be super helpful, because Leech Seeding them, getting them whittled, keeping my walls healthy is also going to be really handy. I have Draining Kiss with Triage for that +3 priority. What I ended up deciding to do was go with a Calm Mind set because I can set up Calm Minds on things like the Sableye. I will probably force it out, and then if I get up a Calm Mind with physically defensive, I can beat things like Infernate, potentially Zapdos. I can continually Calm Mind in the face, and then Triage, Synthesis, and Draining Kiss if it's doing too much damage to me, stuff like that. Depending on what Soul Valley type he brings or what coverage he brings, I can beat it. If he brings like Steel, then obviously not. But if he brings Soul Valley Steel, then like where his Victini switch-ins. It's basically the same set that I had last week for this thing, but it did end up working out because even though it's quite weak, +3 priority is just fantastic. It means I can out-prioritize his Extreme Speed, Mark Punches, Infernates, I can outspeed his entire team. So if I start just setting up and he's forced to recover with something like, say he brings, I don't know, Psychic, X is a Stealth Rock, Moonlight, and a Crossmont with a Cobble Berry, which is a perfectly valid set he could bring against my team. And I bring this thing in and he goes, okay, I'm good, I can, when it's weakened, he decides to Moonlight up as I get up a Calm Mind. I get up to +2 as he switches out, or it stays in and keeps trying to attack me as I just Calm Mind in its face. I can just sweep. Barring Magina. Magina just beats me. There is no way around it. I do like 20% at +6 with Draining Kiss, and it'll still do a shit ton with a Flash Cannon. So my main thing is I will Leech Seed on that switch to get chip damage off on Magina. I can then switch into things like Victini most likely, or if I'm being a bit ballsy up my Nidoking, which I am also bringing, spoilers, to take a Flow Cannon or a Volt Switch and then get healed up with the Leech Seed, etc., force it out, just to get chip damage on that thing. And yeah, this is going to be really nice to have late game. The reason I did not go with physically defensive is because this way I can take 2,000 arrows from Zydog if need be, which at this point my team didn't have to switch into that at all, so yeah, it doesn't. That's a thing that I kind of needed. Now, the last one on my team, as I did mention, is my Nidoking. So originally I was going to bring this thing as a Sash lead, and I know what you're thinking, Trav, there's Omega Sableye on the other team. Why would you bring a Sash lead Nidoking with Toxic Spikes? And I did have Stealth Rocks on there originally, but ended up changing it to Choice Scarf on the advice of Eric, just because it gives me another check to some of his offensive threats. So things like Infernape, I don't think he's bringing Scarf Ape, I think he's bringing like Life Orb or Expert Belt, and so I can outspeed that thing and kill it. Same thing with Superior, I doubt he's bringing Scarf, I can knock it out with a Sludge Wave. It's just giving me good coverage. It also gives me an electric immunity, so I can switch that in on Zapdos. An offensive Zapdos actually does a lot to my team with Thunderbolt plus Extra Sensory, because Extra Sensory hits this thing. But he could also run like Agility, but I can take a hit with stuff like Hooper unless you're on U-turn, and Victini and stuff like that. So it's just nice to have an electric immunity just so you can't spam Volt Switch. I'm running Earth Power because I want something else to hit the Magina. A modest Earth Power does a lot of damage to that thing. Earth Power will also hit Silvally Fire if it decides to bring that set, and Infernape, it two-shots Zydog, it will two-shot a physically defensive Mega Sableye, and then Sludge Wave hits most of the things that Earth Power doesn't, so it doesn't quite two-shot Necrozma because I'm not running Life Orb, but it will do a lot to Zapdos, it'll Oko Superior, it should Oko Ribombi as well, and then Ice Beam is just basically for that Zapdos if I don't need it, or for the Zydog, because Earth Power doesn't Oko, Ice Beam is a guaranteed Oko, and he might be switching it in, predicting a Sludge Wave at some point, and if I have Superior weakened to the point where I can click Ice Beam, for example, that'd be grand. Sludge Wave also does a lot to Tapu Fini. So you'll notice that I basically have most of his team covered right there. I don't hit the Necrozma or the Mega Sableye super effectively, but Mega Sableye I can't hit super effectively anyway, and Necrozma, again, Shadow Ball does, I think, the same as Sludge Wave, like it does exactly the same amount of damage, so there's literally no point. Let me think about that. It does like a tiny bit more, like 1%. And there was no reason to try and bring it. But the most interesting thing I have on this is Toxic Spikes, because he has Misty Terrain and he has Magic Bounce. So normally you would think status is not going to be helpful against this team, but I need to whittle those walls. And I can't be doing that by running Toxic on things, because if I run like Toxic on Victini to try and get his value switch in, and he switches into Tapu Fini, well, Toxic doesn't do anything. If he switches in Mega Sableye, I get Toxic. So what I figure is much safer is to bring in Nidoking, because if I set up Toxic Spikes, I poison Tapu Fini before the terrain goes up. And if he doesn't lead with Sableye, I can get up Toxic Spikes and get that thing poisoned as well. So basically my plan is to lead with this thing and click Toxic Spikes in all except 2 cases. If he leads with Mega Sableye, I will probably, I can't click Toxic Spikes obviously, and I'll probably switch, probably into Miltank. If he leads with Necrozma, I'm not sure what I would do. I would have to think about it, and Necrozma is a very possible lead for him. And if he leads with Zygarde Dog Form, I might have to consider whether I just click Ice Beam to try and get damage on it, because that thing is Spook. He might not predict the Scarf, or I don't know, I feel like he should predict the Scarf and I should click Toxic Spikes, but then if this thing just dies to just get one layer of T-Spikes, that'd be kind of unfortunate. Which is why I did want the Sash set to begin with, but you know, obviously I would be Sash lead, and then Sash would get broken, and then I wouldn't have a check to a lot of those offensive sweepers that I was talking about, like Infernape and Superior, potentially Robombi, stuff like that, because this thing can actually take hits from Robombi, which surprised me enough, because it's not the strongest and have the best coverage. So that is the team I've decided to bring. Basically, it's much more offensive than what I've been bringing the past couple of weeks, and that's basically because I don't have switch-ins to his offense. Like Infernape, I would have to bring a physically offensive Komodo that doesn't reliably switch in. Like it can, but only if I run Rest Talk and then I'm not running coverage for things, and it's set up flutter for things, and that's just not great. Zapdos is a very, very big problem for my team. I did consider like Assault Vest Delmise to try and bait it, but it doesn't do enough damage. Like even offensive Tapu Fini could actually be a really big problem for my team. Superior could actually sweep late game. There's just a lot of offense that I can't deal with. So my plan is basically to punch holes in him until I can set up an agility with Thundurus and just win. Or until all of his immunities to a certain one of King's coverage moves is gone. Like say I kill Magearna and Mega Sableye and Zydog, and then he has like Superior, Infernape, and Tapu Fini left. I click Sludge Wave with Nidoking and win. So those are my main two win conditions, my speedy special attackers, and then I have a lot of physical wall breakers just to try and punch massive fucking holes in his team. So I hope you guys did enjoy. The battle should be going up tomorrow. We're actually going to be having it in a couple of hours, and I will see you in my next video.